Hi, good evening. My name is John Coon. This is my assignment for the week 4 assignment with the instructor for the students that are misbehaving in the class and how we would deal with it. The problem students and the directions for the assignment said for us to create a product that will address the pinpoints for the assignment. I decided to do a flow chart, so to speak, that each student will get. It's more of a portfolio system. Each student gets one at the beginning of the class, maybe sometime in the first week. They take it home to their parents so they'll have the expectations and the rules of the classroom and contact information from the parents and for the teacher as well. So the parents sign off on it, the student signs off on it, and the teacher also signs off on it. The sections that I have pretty much starts off with the first column of it will be the behavior that was caused. This kind of requires the teacher to be able to recognize when students are acting out and when they're just, if it's in their nature. So I would put that this one, acting out, could be anything from talking out of turn during discussions, not turning in or completing homework late, even talking back to the other students and to the teacher, getting angry or showing anger for the simplest reasons. Depending on how the class is being taught, because it's different teachers and different expectations, different rules for every classroom. So depending on how the class is being taught, depends on how many opportunities that student will have. If the teacher's moving around more visible, the opportunity for the student to get out of hand and do disruptive behavior is a little bit minimized. Whereas if the teacher's in the front of the classroom only, so I just made a note of that, and that will lead us into the second column. And I just kind of quoted this one as the action plan. And this one is, it takes time to create, but at this point is when the student should be notified that you will have a meeting with him or her to figure out just how far you're willing to go before contacting the student, and the teacher. Now, I believe in this part, the teacher has to take a step back and actually see what the student is doing, take notes, and then address the student. I don't think one day is sufficient enough information for a teacher to address the student's behavior unless it's of an immediate nature or immediate action, such as fighting, cursing, being blatant, disrespectful to the teacher or other students. Certain incidents should be dealt with immediately. Other things can wait because you never know if the student is just having a bad day or if it was a class, somebody upset them without putting the time in to sit back and see if the student was actually having a bad day or approaching them as if this is their first time, it's just the end of the world. So the teacher takes a step back, kind of makes notes as the week continues on, and then lets the student know that a meeting will need to happen between them and the teacher. Also, during the classrooms, certain things the teacher can do to kind of minimize the behaviors and see if it's going to still continue, such as calling on the student to answer a question, calling them to the chalkboard, kind of look in their direction and kind of feel like you're just watching the student or walking over in that area and being visible, so to speak, so that the students will not want to be disrespectful or talk to their friends or anything while the teacher's there. When addressing students, certain things kind of need to be, it's important for the teacher to remember, um, be positive and with a clear, not loud or aggressive tone. Also, to explain why you're having the meeting with the student, and when you're addressing the student in the meeting, make sure to mention the behavior, not the student himself or herself. Um, and it's also important not to be addressed in front of the other students. It could be as simply as, at the end of the class, I need to see you, or you can put a note on their desk at the beginning of the next class, and once they get there, they'll know they have to stay late or they need to talk to you in some way, shape, form, or fashion. I also have a section is for outside, or as I call it, the root causes. I used to work for McDonald's, and they used to believe that there was a, um, a scheme or an idea or a plan. It's called the five whys. You ask the question why 5 times and you get to the root cause of the issue. If the student's behavior is acting up, you would ask them why they, look at them and see, well, maybe why they're acting up. Is the material not challenging enough? Are they not being interested in the material? If that's the case, then you'll ask again, well, why is this lesson not tailored toward the way that student learns best? It is he just not engaged? Is something else on his mind? Then you can ask why again, and et cetera, et cetera. As you go on, you'll get to the root causes. It may not be anything particular with the teacher or the lesson plan or the materials, but it could be a root cause with the family and the household or the parents or friends or something that happened in a previous class. So it is very important to kind of look back, and I guess at this point it's important to know your students. And it could be a little bit hard because some teachers, in high school or college, you'll have multiple classes and multiple students to attempt to get to know. So it can be hard on a teacher to try to remember exactly what each student likes, dislikes, or everything like that. But it's also very important making notes throughout the class. If it's mental or writing it down, it's kind of dealing with students of this nature. It kind of requires that deciding on what the root causes are decides on the different types of interventions that could be used. Knowing that each student is not a robot and they are a human being lets you know that every method will not work on a student. Some students will not be able to change or relate to a one-on-one conversation or lecture with the teacher. Creating a map where the student kind of tracks this information out as it's going on, and then at the end of the week he can turn it into the teacher so that the teacher can know, okay, well, at home, is he doing his homework? Is it just he has too many chores? Is he taking care of a newborn? Is he helping his parents? Does he have a part-time job? Things of that nature that the teacher cannot see outside the classroom. So it's giving the student a chance to explain what's going on and maybe why they're having trouble with maybe staying awake in class or completing assignments on time. Another example could be taking away privileges, such as when the class has group projects, maybe that student has to work alone. Just because if it's an issue with him getting altercations with other students or him not being able to communicate or get his work done, he may not have the privilege of doing a group activity with other students. Or the teacher will choose the group that he gets. He doesn't get to be with his friends or anything like that. Also, if it's a time where if the class gets all A's on an assignment or the test or the assessment for the period, I bring in candy bars to give them. In this case, the student wouldn't get a candy bar just because of the behaviors that's going on. And at this point, the student would understand because the meeting would have happened. Before the interventions happen, the preliminary meetings happen with the students, so they're signing off on it, stating that they agree to this for the designated timeline. And then they'll have another evaluation, and then if everything is okay, then everything will be erased. The student can go back to the group activities, the privileges, they can stop doing the word map, things of that nature. The next column following that one will be ways teacher can help solve the issue. At times, the student may need help with managing their time or managing what's going on. They may not even know that there's an issue. So it's up to the teacher to kind of bring it to light and work together to get a solution. It is very important for the teacher to know different theories about how to deal with students that are behaving correctly and those that are not. For example, for students that are being correct, monitoring all the rules, no student is perfect, no human is perfect. So they're going to break the rules eventually, but knowing which ones are important enough to address and which ones you can let slide. That is very important. If the student is acting good majority of the time, then it's important to recognize and encourage this type of behavior. For students that are encouraged to do the right thing or they're recognized for doing the right things, they want to do it more. And that seems to be a problem with teachers, is that they address the students that are misbehaving, but not the ones that are behaving correctly or getting the good grades, or participating in discussions or things of that nature. Those students need to be honored, respected, kind of recognized, if it's a reward system or bonus points or a picture and a name, a student of the classroom for the month, or things of that nature. programs like that should be used to kind of recognize and encourage the type of behavior. Also, knowing that recognition can be taken the wrong way, you don't want to take time out to encourage one student every day. It can be okay, the first day, and then on the second day you'll pick up and choose another student to do it, or the next week. Every student wants to be recognized for what they're doing correctly. And if it's always calling on the same student, then the other students are gonna kind of get jealous and start thinking that the teacher has favoritism towards one particular student, which is definitely not what a teacher would want in a classroom. Dealing with unmotivated students can be a challenge, but it's not impossible. The teacher has to set aside time to ask the students, set up a meeting, find out what is going on exactly. After any outside problems are addressed and showing kind of at this point you go the extra mile with the students because you work together to get a plan for their success. You don't leave the student out after addressing it and say, well, this problem has to be addressed and has to be fixed, and then you're done. At this point, this is where you work together because you both have the same goal. The student wants to succeed and graduate, and you actually want to help the student graduate. So you have the same goals to working together in the classroom to get this behavior or this situation taken care of helps. What I've noticed, or what I wanted to address in this section, was the motivation. I believe that motivation comes from the student himself. And if they perceive the lesson or subject to be boring or not important to them, this is where the teacher can change their teaching style and the assignments to address the possibility. By having group projects instead of individual assignments or classworks, that kind of changes the classroom dynamic. Also, there's a teaching method that I particularly like. It's called the cool down period. You start off, when class starts, the students get 5 minutes to get prepared. If there's a journal assignment, they would do their journal in that 5 minutes. Then the teacher goes ahead and starts the lesson for 15 minutes. Then after the 15 minutes, the students get another 5 minutes. In that 5 minutes, they can go over what they just learned. The homework is listed on the board, so they can start their homework, they can go over their classwork, or they can just simply rest. Not fall asleep, but kind of clear their minds, lower it down. With students in the high school level, they have multiple teachers. With students in the college level, they have multiple teachers. So it can get overwhelming for the student to keep on track of everything. So the 5-15-5 is the name of that theory, and I particularly like that one because it gives students a cool down period to where they're not overwhelmed, and it gives the teacher a chance to step back and see how the student is acting as well. Even just in that cool down period, seeing if they're doing their homework or if they're deciding to talk with their friends, or if they're looking disengaged or zoned out. That is, those actions or activities stand out to the teacher about that particular student, and this is kind of using your time wisely in your classroom or managing your classroom from every avenue. Now, it is important that the teacher is on top of new theories and old theories that will work in the classroom, but it's kind of impossible for the teacher to know everything. So research always has to be done on the teacher's behalf for ways to address students and things of that nature, changing the lesson plan or working with other teachers, facilitators to get activities or ideas to kind of encourage your students when the activity. For my particular thing is teaching math. It's a little bit harder to work special projects out for math, but it isn't impossible. The group assignments, the classroom, the group test, the take-home test, everything to that nature helps the student, and it's different than what they've had previously. Even the lecture, if it's student-led instead of teacher-led, the students are kind of in control of their own learning. They have that responsibility, and when students are responsible, they take credit in what they're doing. So they don't want to mess it up. Now they're firstly getting this power or the option to decide how they learn, and kind of directing their activities. The students kind of, in my experience, the students take credit in that, and they are proud of that. The next part isn't particularly a section on the chart. It's kind of just a checklist for the teacher to remember how to address the students personally after the meeting has started. Never going word for word with the student in front of other students or faculty. Again, never addressing the student in front of the classroom while the class is full, because the student has the opportunity to react in a negative fashion because their friends are there. So that peer pressure kind of allows them or pushes them to do that, respond negatively. Unless, of course, like mentioned earlier, the action it needs to be addressed immediately. Knowing when the situation is getting out of control and outside help is needed from either faculty members or a parent, this is kind of a checklist again for the teacher. So at this point, the teacher has to look back at the report and see if this is if this is repeating, if they're getting nowhere with the progress, if the student isn't participating in the discussion, or they're responding negatively, then at that point the teacher decides, well, maybe we need to have the principal or assistant principal come in while we have a meeting, or parents may need to come in. So at that point, the teacher decides, okay, well, maybe I do need to get outside help for this one. Also, it's important for the teacher to remain polite and in control of the situation, no matter how hard it may be. Students may say things that they don't know can be personal to the teacher, and the teacher can sometimes take something personal. So at this point, we have to remain cool, calm, and collected, taking a step back, counting to 10, or anything, not to respond negatively to the student. Always have to treat the student with respect, because that shows them that no matter what, you're still caring. You want them to succeed, even though they're making it as difficult as possible. This checklist makes sure that the student is treated with respect and you're still getting your point across, or you're addressing the behavior that needs to be changed. The final section would be, is outside assistance necessary? And again, this part is just the teacher making a decision depending on the nature of the offense or behavior and the number of times it has happened. The teacher will document all observations of the student when the behaviors are happening. If it's during the class time or the cool down time or during the lecture, how often it happens, when does it happen, are the friends involved, is it peer pressure? These are things that need to be noticed and then addressed with the student. Sometimes the first or second time of the report, the behavior is fixed, nothing else is necessary. After the third or fourth attempt, then it's time to get parental involvement, or as mentioned earlier, principal or assistant principal to help, or another faculty member. Or it may be time for the teacher to go to the other students' teachers and see if they're having the same problems as you are having. And at that point, you can get ideas from them, or you guys can have a group discussion to see exactly how to address the student in the future. And then also making sure the punishment matches the crime. There are always going to be rules, and as we're humans, we're gonna, the students are gonna break the rules eventually. Every student will, depending on which rules they break and how often they break. If there's a rule of no eating and somebody pops a peppermint in their mouth, you don't want to write them up for 2 days for that. You just mention, okay, we know the rules, there's no eating in the classroom. Make sure you pick up after yourself or pick up your messes if it's not a big deal. Another example is the cell phone. If they pull out their cell phone, but you can tell that they're putting it up or just getting their materials out and the phone is out at that point, you can make a point of, phones, your cell phone should not be out, can you put it up? Or you can watch and see how long the student keeps it out, because if they're moving, they may be moving stuff around, but they're going to put it back up. At that point, you still don't want to suspend them from, or take it to the extreme because of the simple things they're breaking one rule, but you didn't ask them or get them to explain exactly what was going on. So at that point, that would be the end of the chart. I actually put a copy of the chart and my sources in a Word document so we can have an example of how the chart would look in the portfolio. And my sources are at the bottom. I didn't know if you wanted a copy of the dialogue that was mentioned. So if you would like a copy of that, I have a copy of it, and I can definitely attach that as well. But I'll go ahead and attach the chart and the sources that I use for this assignment. And that will be all. And that's my report or my product that I will use dealing with students that are having trouble in the classroom. Thank you.